Behind the Shades.
You're looking at yourself, you're saying, this is what I did wrong. This is where I need to improve. This is where I need to figure it out. Because many times when in relationships, and you probably hear this from people you're helping, it's always the other person's fault. I'm the angel. They're the devil. I'm a victim of my circumstances. They tricked me. They bamboozled me. They did whatever. Sometimes it's even more deceptive as they describe it. They're like, you know what happened? I met this nice person and then we went back to my house and whoo, I just fell in love with whatever it is that they gave me. Right? But it's a lot more than that, because when I look at my relationships where they didn't succeed, I was at fault in some areas and the person was at fault in some areas. And some of those faults, when you put them together, they just don't mesh. And that's perfectly fine. You can have two good people who come together and have one bad relationship. And that is okay. They're just not meant to be together. So Claire, how do you help your clients understand that every time something ends, I don't want to use the word fail, but when it's not as successful as they want it to be, they have to do some self-reflection, because some of the blame is ultimately on them as well as the other party?
Yeah, so when I work with clients, and this is the honest truth, I'm never gonna dig into your marriage or your partner before we have spoken about you, because like you're saying, I mean, that was my really harsh reality check. That when I started, and I made a decision that I'm gonna make us reconcile, half of the work was on me. It was on me and how I think and how I talk and how I behave and how I relate to, this other person. A lot of work was done on me without anything involving the other person. And when I was doing that work, I saw the change in real life, towards how the other person also became. Because like you said, it is a relationship between two people. You can never blame one person fully. So for me, for my clients, normally when I'm working with them, we spend a lot of time on you, the person that comes to me. And even if a couple comes to me, I like to take them individually for a period before we talk together as a couple, because it makes the work easier when each person has done a bit of work on themselves before we talk about the relationship itself. I also say that, be selfish, so work on yourself. And normally when you've been through a challenging relationship like that, it really takes a toll on us individually. So we get to a place where some of us, we even lose who we are. We don't even know who we are anymore. We don't know how to communicate without it involving the other person. When you ask people, one of the simplest things that I do is I ask people, so what is the outcome that you want out of this? And you will not believe how many people struggle to come out with an outcome that doesn't involve the other person. If he did this, or if she did this, or if he said this, and I'm like, no, let's forget about the other person. What do you want? If you went deeply into your heart and your heart's desires and your dreams, what do you want in this? And for some people, that can in itself take a very long time to actually come up with. And this is what being in a difficult relationship does to each of us. It's not because we are weak, or it's not because of anything, but it's because genuinely we love the other person so much so that when the thing is not working, it really breaks us down. It breaks who we are. It breaks something fundamental inside us. And that's the reason why my first thing is normally to focus on you, so that we can get you to a better place. Because when you are in a better place, we are able to conquer whatever is the issue in the marriage. And I'm even talking about issues like when the other person has had an affair, because that's actually surprisingly one of the main issues that make people, refuse to work on the marriage, because they are hurt. The other person has broken my trust, and how do you expect me to just forgive them and move on? And I always say, forget about what they went to do. Let's talk about you. How can we help you to let go of what happened, to stop holding on to what the person did? Because holding on to something that somebody else did to you is actually hurting your own self. You hurt yourself more than you hurt the other person. So I always starts with the individual. How can we get you to a good place? How can we work through the things that, have traumatized you? I use the word traumatized you in the period where things have not been very perfect. And when we get to a very good place, I mean, the work on the marriage itself, it doesn't take that much effort. That was also my experience. I spent a lot of time on myself, and to the extent that I actually stopped. I couldn't remember what he had done. I couldn't remember, his stuff anymore. I'm like, seriously, I don't have time for you and your stuff. I am busy working on myself. And that was the shock that I had, that, he was. And before I divorced, I actually asked for the divorce because I was like, he's a terrible person. You should ask some of my friends that I used to talk about my marital issues before and during the divorce. I mean, I could talk 10 hours nonstop about how terrible he was. I got a reality check that he was actually not that terrible. He did some strange things, but I had an issue with how I was also behaving. I had my flaws, but it was more the thing about how I was reacting or responding to him, because sometimes he would just say something very honestly, and I will take it so hard and it will hit me and I will get depressed. And I realized, why are you like that? Why should somebody's statement hit you that hard? There's something going on with you that is not actually helping you in life. Deal with it. Get rid of that, some of these terrible belief systems, some of the barriers that I had, or some of, some behaviors that I had put up with for a very long time that were not serving me well. So it was a lot of work on myself, unfortunately or fortunately. And when I finished that work, I realized that half of the problems had actually even vanished to start with. And then was the other things that we needed to deal with together. And that was not actually that difficult in that sense.